Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome everyone to the non-fungible token NFT and its legal issue within webinar. My name is Nadia Sofia and I will be appearing as your moderator for today. On behalf of the organizing team, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you, especially to our distinguished speaker. Our team would like to express a huge gratitude for spending your precious time to share some of your knowledge and experience with us today. I hope everyone will enjoy and gain a lot from this webinar. Alright, before we move on, we kindly would like to remind to all the participants today that this webinar will be delving into the perspective of NFT in the eyes of law. Hence, get ready with your pens and papers as it will be a deep dive into the legality of NFT. Without further ado, we will now begin with our first round of the webinar, which will be conducted in forum form with our distinguished speaker. Before we begin, please allow me to introduce two of our distinguished speakers today. Firstly, Mr. Kevin Koo, which is Mr. Kevin Koo Kingsiat is the partner of Koo Chinam Co. and also a co-founder for the Lex Futurist Group, a grouping of lawyers interested in blockchain and its application. He's interested in NFT, metaverse, and also the legal aspects of its applications. Mr. Kevin Koo also is a collector of NFT and also participant of NFT communities. Good morning, Mr. Kevin. Are you there?
Good morning.
Yes, very well. All right, next I will introduce our next main speaker of the day, which is Mr. Richard Wee. Mr. Richard has been specialized in litigation and over the years, his practice evolved to include corporate matters. Other than that, he also engaged for government-related work where he offers advice to numerous government agencies such as like Ministry of Youth and Sports and also Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. Mr. Richard also, with distinguished achievement in Malaysia Bar Council, Mr. Richard also passionate continues to serve the bar as the chairperson of the Professional Standards and Development Committee, which manage the bar's continuing professional development, which known as CPD scheme. All right. Good morning, Mr. Richard. Can you hear my voice?
Yeah. Morning. Loud and clear. Much obliged. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
very well. Thank you, Mr. Richard. All right, let's jump into our topic today. So before we start with the forum session with both of our distinguished speaker, allow me to brief and intro everyone about what is our topic and what is NFT, a briefing about NFT today. So non-fungible token is a way to record, verify, or track the ownership of unique asset, either physical or digital. Consequently, NFTs can be utilized to represent a work of art, features contract, music score, book, real estate, etc. Any type of object that could be considered as unique and rare. It was minted, stored, and transferred on a blockchain and also therefore cannot be seized or tampered with by any bad actors. Alright, enough with the introduction for today. Let's dive into our main topic of the webinar. So we will be starting with Mr. Kevin Koo. So my first question of the day for Mr. Kevin Koo, as we all know that you are a member of blockchain lawyers, which is called as Lex Futurist Group. However, most of us, including the participants today, are very new to the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFT. Could you share with us today how blockchain relates to the NFT and cyber law? Is it two different things or is it actually related? Mr. Kevin, the floor is yours.
So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are new to blockchain, by now you would have heard about blockchain. It's a huge thing. in 2021 when this session is being conducted. And there is a lot of interest in it. So the blockchain actually really first came out into the public consciousness when we talk about cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin was the first, we could say it's the first application. But a blockchain is what we call a decentralized ledger. So as law students, you would know that there is a network of computers here. And each computer is what we call a node. All right. And you would then have this ledger which is then being updated continuously by all of the participants in the network. So that is what you call the blockchain, or the DLT, decentralized ledger technology. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies are what we call fungible, because you don't have any preference for any one of them. They're exactly the same. All right. Like if I give you two 10-cent coins or 20-cent coins, you would have no preference for either one of them. So they're exactly the same. But somewhere along the way, some people came up with this idea of colored coins. All right, and that was early on when they started thinking like, how can we use Bitcoin to represent items, right? Like maybe your car card or your house title. Okay, maybe you could have a blue one for a certain kind of car and a green one for a house. So that idea of the colored coins, right? It began to take shape, and with Ethereum, right, this idea became more tangible. Okay, so we had this whole thing about creating of tokens, and in 2017 thereabouts, right, there was this whole thing about ERC20. So people began to be able to issue tokens, but these tokens were all fungible. They were exactly the same. So you could create maybe Richard coins, all right? Maybe Richard wanted to start a new platform. And then he could say, okay, I would now issue maybe 2 million Richard coins. Each one of them is about 1 cent. So that's not a lot of money. But if you buy these Richard coins, you can come and pay me on my platform. And that was how it started. Okay. And it became a huge thing because a lot of people, they went through this route to raise funds. Rather than, getting in an equity-based investor, whereby you have to give away some of your shares of the company, they decided to sell these tokens. All right. But along the way, something interesting happened. They say that, how can we use, crypto to have something unique? So some of the early ideas that came out were like the CryptoPunks and also the CryptoKitties, okay, whereby they have these JPEGs or images. So NFT is basically a token which points to a medium, and it's unique in that sense, right? So a non-fungible token. When it first came out, the idea was that you could have a unique one-of-one, all right? But today you can see that you could have an additioned NFT, meaning to say that I could have this one picture, but I want 1,000 copies of it. You can do that. Okay. Yeah, an NFT is a token. It points to a media which may not be on the blockchain. It may be on the blockchain, it may not be on the blockchain. That image has to reside somewhere. All right. It can be an image, it can be video, it can be music. It could even be your PDF file. All right. So if you wanted to mint your assignment as an NFT, you can do that, and then you send it to your professor on his crypto wallet. Okay. The storage layer, let's talk about that. Okay. The token is definitely on the blockchain, and you can explore it. But the storage layer, a lot of them use something called IPFS. It's the Interplanetary File System. It actually grew out of this project called the Filecoin. All right. And yeah, anyone can use it. But there is an alternative called RWeave. WEAP. So our Weave is also another storage kind of protocol. All right. So when we talk about NFT, today is about JPEGs, images, right? But tomorrow it can be so much more. But I think that is a question for Richard to address later on. I don't want to, steal his thunder. So that's what I wish to say on that thing. NFTs have become a huge thing, you know. So we talk about NFTs, but it can be so many types of things. All right. It can be communities. I'm when you read up my profile, right? You said that I'm a participant in NFT communities, and these are the collectibles that we talk about. Right? Like the CryptoPunks, they have 10,000 of them. I don't have a CryptoPunk, but I do have a chameleon NFT, and it's basically when you purchase an NFT from the 10,000 images, right? Then you can join the community on the Discord, and somehow they treat you as part of their community. So that's one. They call the PFP, the profile picture. So if you buy that, you can put that on your social media. Okay. Some of them, they like to print it out, they put it on the wall. But there's also other types of NFT where you have like fine art, people do their paintings, right? Some of them take their photographs of nice night sky or city life, whatever it is, and they sell them. Okay, so there are NFT marketplaces as well. And as we will discuss, there are some legal issues with NFT marketplaces. Yeah, but by and large, NFTs are a way of digitizing art, but it can be more than art.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kevin, for a very enlightening and insightful answer. So, since we all know that you did interested in NFT and also the participants for an NFT community, so we wonder that would you mind to share with us how do you start with to learn about NFT and cryptocurrency, and why do you find it is interesting as a lawyer, Mr. Kevin?
So for me, my journey with crypto and blockchain actually started sometime in 2017. I was serving somebody as a commissioner for work. I'm a commissioner for work. So, I chopped sumpah, right? And somebody came to my office and he asked, "Excuse me, sir, do you know anything about blockchain?" I said, "I've heard about it." That time it was just starting to come up, right? I think in about January or February, it was just starting to come up. So I said, "Can you please read up more about it? I'm looking for a legal advisor." So I said, "Okay, I'll read up about it." And actually, for me, I'm quite interested in technology since a young age. So that's why I'm also holding a license as a patent agent. I like to read those technology-based things. Yeah, but the journey about NFTs actually is quite later for me. With blockchain, when we first started out in 2017, there were no specific laws for crypto. So we learned, and we tried to apply whatever laws were existing at that point in time. But as the thing started to develop, you could see that there were specific laws coming up. And people who were promoting crypto, they started to say, "Okay, let's have a legal opinion." So there is a whole industry started to spring up at that point in time, right? You had people who were looking for lawyers, who were looking for legal opinion, and the regulators were also changing the law. So a legal opinion which you had, like say in 2017, might not be good in 2018 because the whole legal framework changes. Okay, and as you went on in that journey, right, you could see that some of them they started to come up with creative things like the STO, security token offering. where they linked your token to certain kind of shares or land or something like that, right? And that was very interesting. Yeah, but blockchain is actually a global thing, and I believe that a lot of us, yeah, I mean, a lot of us lawyers, we're actually looking at some of the major jurisdictions, right, to see what's happening over there. And eventually, your local regulators are going to learn a few things, and they're also going to implement certain laws. So that is something which keeps on evolving. All right, like when we first started out, this whole thing was it was not a legal tender, and then later on, we were not sure. We thought it was transparent, but eventually it was clarified. It was under Securities Commission. So, but we'll talk about that later. So the interesting part is that it's always changing.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kevin Ko. Now we know how Mr. Kevin find an NFT. It is very interesting. All right, moving on to our next speaker, to the question for our next speaker, which is Mr. Richard. So, Mr. Richard, as we know that NFT can be in different forms like art, music, technology, or even artificial intelligence. Do you think that there is a potential for NFT and this industry to be developed more? The floor is yours, Mr. Richard.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you. First things first, I'd like to say good morning to everybody, and I would like to record my thanks to UKM. It's nice to be back in UKM. I think the last time I was kindly invited back was when we were giving a talk on esports and sports law, and it's always nice to share some ideas with university students. And I understand that this talk is also open for the public, so I'm going to try to share some points with the public. I must confess that NFTs to me is still fairly new. Unlike most lawyers who are involved in technology, like Kevin is actually very well known to be in technology law. I was made to understand yesterday that he was even, my memory of Kevin was we met in court, I remembered many years ago. And of course, I know Kevin's dad, who's a very well-known lawyer. So it's nice to be together with Kevin again after so many years. And I'm so happy to see Kevin evolving into such a prominent technological lawyer. Well done, Kevin. So for me, some background is that I fell into this area by accident. The irony is because of esports. And as I was doing esports and developing it in same time with Kevin with blockchain in 2016 and 2017, eventually some of my esports clients came and asked me about blockchains. And then eventually I got involved in fintech, where I'm now quite heavily involved in fintech, working with MDEC for fintech's fintech booster. So then eventually when it comes to fintech, you will get involved in crypto. You will have some question with crypto, like what happened to Kevin, very similar kind of pathway. And earlier this year, late last year, I received much inquiry about NFTs. And I remember at the time I was quite bewildered. What is an NFT? And only to understand that, oh, you can actually mint the, for example, a JPEG into the system, into the blockchain, and retain it as yours. It's like a bragging right. Now, to answer the question, your question was whether or not there could be any different form. Actually, let's just use an example which could just kind of answer the question straight away. The fact that the founder of Twitter managed to sell a screenshot of his own first ever tweet, and it's now sitting somewhere in Ethereum, is an indication of the kind of extent that NFT can go to. That cannot be considered as an art in the traditional sense, but perhaps art in a modern sense. But surely the screenshot of the first ever tweet to be an NFT is an indication of what we can do. I foresee that NFT, and because of my involvement in fintech, sports and esports, I foresee NFT will be also involved in that area. I wouldn't be surprised that fintech will eventually include NFT one day. And I think artificial intelligence is definitely going to be part of an NFT. We look forward to the laws coming out from European Union. The EU Parliament is going through a draft law for EU's AI, very similar to EU's PDPA laws, which now is GDPR. We follow that. We follow track that, so that because it applies in this region. And so once we know how the European Union intend to adapt and adopt the artificial intelligence regulations, which eventually will affect NFTs, then it may also guide us here in this region, because this region is still not developed yet, which is, I think, some of the questions coming up here. So long story short, it can be more than just art, technology. I think it can even be a video, event. It can even be a ledger. It can be a document. Many things can be an NFT. There's currently no limit to it for now. So that is my short answer, despite my long explanation. All yours, Nadia, right? I remember. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. Before we move on to our next question, I did realize that our Dean, Faculty of Law, did join us, our webinar today. So good morning, Prof. Nazura. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Prof. Morning. Terima kasih. Thank you for having Kevin and I here. Thank you.
Morning. Thank you very much to all. This is a very interesting topic, but I'm so sorry to come in late. But I'll be here. We'll listen to the rest of the presentation. Thank you,
Prof.
for being here. Yeah, for helping our students.
You know, Prof. I suspect, Prof. Kevin can maybe help me to verify. I've screened through months of the last in colleges and universities. I think this is the first proper webinar on NFT and law by a university, you know, Prof.
Is it? Oh, I'm so happy.
I think so. Yeah. I've checked through BAC, the other private universities, who many of them run their own webinars. I don't think so. There is a topic on NFT and the law. I stand corrected, of course. I stand corrected.
Because I think one of the reasons why, perhaps you can ask the students, but this has been actually mentioned and discussed during our lectures, even though we don't really have a specific topic on that. But this non-fungible token NFT is very important when you talk about copyright, for example, because there are a lot of the work out there. We have legal issues, especially when it comes to the smart contract. So we would like to know more about that lah. Yeah.
Indeed, Prof. I totally agree with that. In fact, I think my next question is about copyright and IP. So the timing is perfect.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, Prof. Nazura, for joining us this morning. Thank you, Prof. All right. Next question. Shall we proceed with the webinar today? Next question for Mr. Richard. Since we did mention about the copyright and also intellectual property, so since NFT very significant in both of these, can you share the relation between those things?
Well, at this juncture, Nadia, I would like to later on invite Kevin to give his views.
Sure.
I kind of I'm not trying to be humble. I just feel that I know Kevin is probably more knowledgeable than me in this area. As you know, I just started doing this area earlier. And when we got involved, it's because our clients were getting involved in NFT. So it was only natural that I have to learn to understand this. So later on, I'm sure Kevin may be able to give a different view, or maybe an additional view to what I'm going to say next. But basically, for me, from what I see, the way NFT works, I'm not saying that this is how NFT is. I'm just saying that this is how I see it working now. That specifically with regards to art, as I said earlier, NFT can be, it could be my jacket, it could be something, another intangible matter, floating around in the blockchain is possible. But for now, dealing with art, it's quite obvious that the person who created the art will maintain the copyright. Unless the person, when the person sells out the art, agree to sell the copyright together. So it's all down to contract. Sama ada kamu setuju nak jual bersama dengan lukisan, lakaran, apa benda lah. You want to sell the thing, you want to sell with your copyright, then go ahead. But generally, the art will maintain with the copyright holder. So classic one, again, I purposely use that example, is a Twitter. So the first ever tweet by the founder of Twitter still remains within the control of the founder. He is a he controls his tweet, the first ever tweet. But now someone else is owning the screenshot of the tweet. I was asked this question recently by some NFT enthusiasts. Many of them are my friends. And I told him this. I said that one example that you can give for NFT is like the, say, the Yonex badminton racket. So when Yonex create a special first ever badminton carbon platinum whatever racket, they will always maintain the patents and copyright and rights for that racket. But Kevin and I will buy the racket. We'll go and play badminton, you know, wow, we show off, I have the best racket in the world, blah, blah, blah. So I will have it. And I can show off that I am having it, you know, like the NFTs, I have the first ever. And it's kept in my house. So my house is like a blockchain, you know. So it's hanging in my house. And all of us have it. And we spent 1,005 ringgit, special racket, you know, mahal racket, yeah. 5,000 ringgit for this racket, for example. So that is how I see NFT to be. That the original art will always remain with the creator. And again, I repeat, I'm speaking with regards to copyright, which is about art, because NFT could clearly expand to some other things. In fact, I can bet you that if you invite Kevin or I back in this topic, say in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, don't be surprised we change what we say. Don't be surprised that we have to give a different alternative view. So because NFT is still so evolving that every month there's something new. So that is something you have to consider lah. So long story short, copyright will always be with the artist or the person who created it, unless the person who created it is willing to let it go together with the art. But more often than not, the original artist will retain the copyright rights, and the person who acquired it acquired a piece, a special piece, and put up on the blockchain. So being a sports enthusiast, I've noticed that even NBA has been involved. Later on, I'll be speaking about interesting case on NBA. There is a lawsuit in NBA from the US version. There's some issues pertaining to the calculation of profit and securities and tax in US pertaining to NFT. So then, so this is an example where NFT can be used. A screenshot of an NBA slam dunk, football, Lionel Messi about to score a goal, badminton, Lee Chong-wei leaping up about to smash that image, or when Lee Chong-wei was unfortunately crying because he lost in the semi-final of the, it was so painful for him as a Malaysian. That all iconic pictures can become NFT, and of course the person who bought it will be able to say it's mine, and retain that copy, but the original is still with the person who created it.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Richard. What about Mr. Kevin?
Yeah, I think Kevin, am I okay at that point? Because I'm still trying to grasp this area, no, Kevin?
Right. Yeah, I think I want to add some points to that. So I think there are a number of creators for NFTs. They actually give the right to create derivative works to whoever purchases the NFT. So, for example, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. If you purchase the Bored Ape Yacht Club or a Mutant Ape Yacht Club, what we call the BAYC or the MAYC, which is today known as something of a blue chip NFT, you actually have the right to go and create something new, which is based on the likeness of that thing which you have. So that's that's one way of transferring certain rights, to your NFT holder, whereby you actually allow them to create derivative works. And I think I got to know a musician, right? He goes by the Twitter account of Nifty Sax, NIFTYSAX, because he plays the saxophone. So he had a Genesis drop, and that's his initial 100 NFTs, right? And in there, he wrote very clearly in the metadata. He said that if you buy my NFT, you can do what you like with the track. That means you can use it and you can remix it, whatever you like. So there is like what Richard said, if it is allowed, okay, in explicitly, then they can do something with it. So I think that's one interesting aspect of it. All right. Coming back to copyright law, and AI. Actually, you might have heard of this case whereby there was a chimpanzee. So somebody left a camera in the jungle. A chimpanzee found it, and then the chimpanzee took that camera and he smiled and he took a picture, just like that. And then people started taking that picture and then they started commercializing it. The question in that case was, who actually owns the copyright? Because the camera holder would say that, the camera owner would say that, it's my camera. I own the camera. So I left it there. The picture was taken. Therefore, I have the right to commercialize it. Other people were saying that, no, you left the camera. The chimpanzee took the camera. He took a picture. The chimpanzee owns the copyright. Now, I don't know what Richard's views are, right? But this presents interesting questions because today we have this whole slew of artists, and they do what is called GAN art or AI art, right? GAN stands for GAN, Generational Adversarial Network. All right, it's where you have two AIs and they fight against each other. So generally, if you have this GAN art, the engine, you just give them some words like Karipap metaverse. Suddenly you'll come up with something like Karipap, and then it has that fantastic background with the space and all that, the robots, maybe it come up. Who owns the copyright in that? People are actually taking this thing and turning it into an NFT. All right. Now, if you don't own the copyright in that, who owns the copyright, right? So that's an interesting question that I think it's still being developed. So those are some of the things that I wish to just comment on. I also want to say that the usage of NFT, I thought that an interesting use case of NFT would be virtual land, which is not a really like picture in the traditional sense, but it's like you can buy plots of virtual land and people have actually sold it for very high prices. So a lot of applications there. Yeah. But I think Richard knows about this virtual land because it's all in the esports and gaming part.
Yeah, massive there issue, big one, yeah. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah. Decentraland, a plot of it, the highest sale was $900,000. $900,000, right? And when they first started out, they were selling one plot for about $20. Okay, so that's my comment.
All right.
I think the future, Kevin, is going to be all metaverse and digital. And then you and I will be acquiring Damansara Heights digitally one day, right? Yeah, I think it's going to happen.
Hope so, bro.
Yeah. All right.
It will become reality. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I think one day, Nadia, you and I won't be excited to chase a property in Bangi. You actually go into a metaverse and buy the other Bangi, which could have a Disneyland inside the digital version of that's why Facebook is so into metaverse, because I believe that will be the future for digital transactions for the next 10 to 20 years.
Yes. All right. Yes, we hope so. We could achieve that. Right, moving on. Next question for Mr. Kevin. So so we all know that everyone has their own handphones and tablets, even younger generations such as kids. And of course, there are plenty of opportunities that might have not be taken by people to explore what benefit them. So do you think that Mr. Kevin from Malaysia's younger generation should know and understand what is actually NFT and how they can benefit from it? A brief answer would suffice.
All right. I think from two aspects maybe. One, you know, uh, today you're talking about NFT as collectibles or art, but tomorrow actually your digital certificate, right, may be an NFT. Your passport might be an NFT. So everything that you can digitize will be an NFT. That's the first thing. The second thing is that, you know, with the handphones that we have today, actually the capabilities are much, much better than the best computers of, say, maybe even 10 years ago. All right. So you can take photos, high definition, you can edit it, you can do art with it, and you can turn it into a piece of art. And I know for a fact that there are people actually creating art entirely on their handphone and then minting it and selling it on OpenSea. There are people doing that, you know. They take pictures of different items, they cut them out, and then they paste them into what is called a digital collage, right? That's one way. The other way is they maybe just draw in the phone itself. So if the younger generation is creative, right? Younger people are usually very creative, okay? They can unlock their creativity and the value inside of it, you know. I see some of these Twitter spaces filled entirely with maybe Thai artists or Japanese artists, you know, and they are talking in their language about NFTs. So they build up the community, and I think we also have that. We have that community over here. I think the first platform is Pentas. All right, they've built up a local community, a lot of artists, but you have to onboard because we have a lot of talents in Malaysia, and the market is worldwide. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kevin. All right, before we move on to our brief short break, one last question for Mr. Richard. Since NFT today had benefit many of our artists and also digital illustrators to gain profit from their artwork, what are some tips to new NFT minters that you would give before they start their journey in NFT?
Thank you for this question. Recently, this is not meant to be some sort of promotion to my law firm's website, but recently we wrote an article about this on things we need to look out for. One of the things I propose to NFT to the NFT community, which we normally call our clients a community, is to keep an eye on tax. I'm sure eventually once LHDN realize the value of NFT, and I'm sure they already know in LHDN, they'll come for the tax. So there's something I would strongly recommend NFT community to keep an eye on. Make sure your documents are in order, your paper trail is in order, the purchase and sale is in order. When I say in order, means there is a proper paperwork to go on that. And in fact, this will be nice because later on in the next session, I would like to speak a little bit about the legal framework for NFT, which to me, with respect to the system, I think is not evident. It's not clear. Unlike crypto, there is a clear legal framework now. Or getting clearer and clearer. You can actually acquire and sell cryptos like stock exchange. So platforms like Luno, for example, you can go into Luno and buy and sell cryptos there. It's like I repeat, like a stock exchange, like a share. And especially when the High Court of Malaya has acknowledged crypto as a recognized asset, and it's an asset which can be acquired and sell, buy and sell. And I think NFT will require that kind of legal pronouncement So back to this question. Number one will be tax. Number two, again, I'm not plugging for Kevin and I, but really you need lawyers. Please get some legal support for your work. The more vague and the more gray it is, the more you need legal support. There are 20,000 lawyers in Malaya, and if you include Sabah and Sarawak, I think there's easily 26 to 28,000 lawyers in Malaysia. But just Malaya alone, in Sabah, in peninsular Malaysia, we have 21,000 lawyers. So I would recommend NFT community, please. There will be some lawyers who tak tahu apa-apa, never heard of NFT before. That's normal. But there are lawyers who are very well versed in technology. Ask them to support your work and to make sure that your work is legally sound. Next one, of course, I would propose that you try to understand IP laws well, intellectual property laws well. You don't need a lawyer in that sense. You can know your law yourself, or you can look for IP agents, which some of them are not lawyers. So these IP agents will be able to guide you on what your rights are. But the copyright laws are very clear, like the example of the chimpanzee. You know, he or she who draws it or takes it probably owns it. Unlike patent where you have to register, trademark of a brand you have to register. You know, so these are different. So these are a few things I would recommend to you to do. The tips: look out for tax. Please gain some legal support, and also, of course, understand your rights on intellectual property. I think the earlier question you asked me, we already addressed that issue of IP. Thank you for the question, Nadia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. So, highlighting from Mr. Richard's answer, he suggested to new NFT minters to seek for some legal support in order to protect your own copyright and also understand your own right in your NFT artworks or else. All right, participants, we are going for a short break right now. We would like to remind everyone to prepare your question as we will have a Q&A session before the end of this webinar. So with that being said, we are going to have a short break as we will take a 5-minute break. So participants, please do not leave the meeting or click the leave the meeting button. Please only mute your mic and off your camera. So
right.
thank
See you
you
in 5 minutes.
very much. Thank
Okay.
you very much and see you very soon. Okay. So before we start, may I confirm whether both our speaker here?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, very well. So welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again. We will now begin with our second session, which is in regards to the NFT regulations in Malaysia. So without further ado, I will now invite both of our speakers, Mr. Richard and Mr. Kevin, to answer this question. So based on your experience, Mr. Richard and Mr. Kevin, what are some major issues that concerning with the regulation of NFT in Malaysia?
Kevin, you want to go first, Kevin? Yeah, I don't mind. I think you know this area better than me. All yours, Kevin. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. So, coming to NFTs, we talk about buying and selling of NFT. Okay, but currently you can't really buy NFTs with credit card. You can't buy it with cash. You need to buy it with cryptocurrency. So there is that whole set of regulations about cryptocurrency, which may or may not, come into NFTs. But I believe that in the long term, like I mentioned before, I said that if you were to buy a picture of a banana, a photograph of a banana, or maybe say 100 ringgit, you might be able to justify it that the banana is beautiful, the picture is, dramatic. But if you were to buy a picture of a banana for say 300,000 ringgit, what is the logic of that? Right? But some of these NFTs are going for very high. And there is a real danger, for example, that the film and the face of this thing might be used to mask actually another transaction, all right, to launder money. So for that reason, I think if you want to talk about money laundering, it could potentially be an issue. And FATF, or the Financial Action Task Force, have actually previously also identified money laundering using art. So if it's in the digital space, that's one issue. All right. I think it's going to happen, but it might not happen. But some of these NFTs might also have earning potential. And when you talk about earning, there's a few types. One of it is you play, you win, and then you get token. That is okay. That is you really earn. But what about passive income? All right. And for example, there is a NFT called CyberKongs. KONGZ. If you buy one CyberKong, you will get, say, banana tokens every day. And if you look into YouTube, there's even one review of this banana CyberKong, in which the guy said that you can earn more than $100,000 a year just by holding one CyberKong. Now that becomes almost like an investment, right? Because it gives you profit. And then should it be regulated then as a security? Now that's a question for the Security Commission to think about. We lawyers like ourselves, we can offer to give our feedback if they ever wanted it. So some of the issues. Anyway, Richard.
Thanks, Kevin. Unfortunately, Kevin, just a few times when you spoke, I think there was like a sound. Unfortunately, I think you have to hold like that, like Christian. You when you hold like that, it's very clear.
Yeah.
Never mind. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I heard you. Thank you, Kevin. From my what I can see, the major issues relating to regulation is that I think the regulators themselves will find it hard to pin down a definitive definition on an NFT, simply because as both Kevin and I mentioned earlier, NFT is still evolving. It's still very much a growing child. So it is quite tough then to And as you know, law has to be clear and certain and permanent to some extent. It is tough then for the regulators to pin down a definitive definition. So that's the first challenge. Second thing is that if you peruse the Contract Act, where the source of the decision of the Malaysian first ever crypto case, can NFT fall within that definition of a chattel, a benda lah, satu benda yang boleh dijual bendi as per the Contract Act? The answer is yes, it can be. And so if you break down the law to its foundation, you must first see whether NFT is something which can be, well, we can't touch NFT, but it's something which we can buy and sell. It is something which is, even though it's non-fungible, but whether it is something which we can define and therefore become an asset. My opinion is yes. Then from there you build a framework. And actually, we need a framework. Like, how do you buy and sell NFT? How do you regulate the acquisition? How do you confirm the NFT is legit? And then Kevin hit a spot. I wrote down here about AMLA. I think, no disrespect, anybody here from the NFT community, I'm not at all suggesting or imposing or casting any aspersion on any of you. But the fact remains is, like crypto, NFT is quite susceptible to the abuse of money laundering. So it is actually possible to launder money through crypto and now NFT. So which means the Bank Negara's laws for AMLA has now they have to expand the reach of AMLA to NFT. That would require some interesting interpretation and expansion of the rules of AMLA to this area. And because NFT is it exists in the blockchain, which technically doesn't mean it's in Malaysia. It could be anywhere in the world, or it's floating in a digital world. So how do you then track down this NFT and then track down the person who's laundering money to bring this person to justice? So that is something I don't dare to make any comment yet, simply because it's the potential conclusion is far-reaching, and also there's so many possibility. Like Doctor Strange in Avengers Endgame and the Infinity Stones. He said he saw 12 billion possible endings. Same thing here. There's many possible endings. So that's another challenge. But I am quite certain that the authorities of Malaysia, and of course for finance and matters related to digital assets like this, the three main government agency, or not agency, one of them is the ministry that you look at is number one, the Ministry of Finance, and under it will be Bank Negara and the Security Commission. So as we all now know, cryptocurrencies is regulated by Security Commission. Malaysia do not recognize crypto as a currency, but instead they see crypto as an asset which can be bought and sell. So I'm quite certain these three bodies are looking and keeping an eye on NFT, and eventually we will find more and more pronouncement from them, announcement and pronouncement. Apakah undang-undang, regulasi, the rules to regulate this area is coming. I'm quite certain of it.
All right. Thank you very much to our both speakers regarding the major issues in NFT regulations in Malaysia. So this question will be directed to Mr. Richard. First, since you had been practicing in legal field for such a long time, so would you mind to share with us today any case that closely related to NFT or cyber law? Do you think it is very interesting and you still remember until this day?
Well, I still remember because it just happened late last year. Why I got jumped into NFT was when I read this news about this NBA capturing images of the NBA players. I mentioned this earlier, performing a slam dunk, and that image was then inserted into a blockchain. And for the first time in my life, I heard this phrase, non-fungible token. So we've heard Bitcoin token, Ethereum token, but apa benda ni NFT ni I never heard before. So that really intrigued me because I'm a sports lover. I was like, wow, I didn't know we can do this. And I was telling myself, had I known we can do this, I would have gone into NFT a long time ago because I know so many people in sports. So, but that was one. And of course, being a lawyer, I think Kevin and I can relate to this. We, of course, put on our lawyer cap and start looking at things like regulation, litigation, corporate matters, tax, etc., etc. And recently in the US, again about the NBA, the NBA had appointed. I don't go into too detail, but long story short, in the case is that the sale of the NFT is now being subject matter of a lawsuit in America. I think it's in LA, where the question is whether or not the profit from this NFTs triggers certain laws in America, and it's called the laws of securities, which is very similar to tax. But of course, I'm not very well versed. I'm not an American lawyer, but what I read is that that case is ongoing in court. So it's interesting to see how the American courts define NFT and how they will take into account the profits of the loss. Now, in Malaysia, a similar concept applies for land law. So it's called RPGT, Real Property Gains Tax, and it's also applying to some extent shares. So if you make profit out of land, you buy a land and you sell, you have to pay tax. So Real Property Gains Tax. I'm not surprised if this tax can apply to NFT. Though this is something I also foresee. So to answer a question, that incident with NBA was really an interesting, captured my imagination on the spot. But what really cemented it was when I read and I repeated this example 3 times, so as you can see how much it affected me, was Twitter. How in the world orang yang ambil screenshot, they take a screenshot of the first ever tweet, become an NFT, and I was like, wow. So now I'm thinking, can I take some screenshot of my Twitter and sell? Mana tahu can make some money, you know? Yeah, I see Kevin putting out. Yeah, correct, Kevin, right? Well, why not? My first ever tweet, you know? Yeah. So even I can sell 1,000 ringgit, cukup lah. You know, we are not famous like the Twitter founder. But the point being is that, wow, it opened up my mind, like metaverse, you know, like, wow, the possibility is unlimited. So that is another example of NFT which captured my imagination. And thank you for asking me this question, because it allowed me to share how I fell into this area. You know, I wouldn't even say I embraced it. I actually fell into it. And then 1 year later, I'm speaking with you on this webinar. So what an interesting evolution for my career.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. Actually, it was very interested from what you are sharing. So we didn't expect you only have 1 year knowledge about NFT. I think it is very well versed.
It's only 1 year.
Really, I see. Okay.
But you see, Nadia, when as a lawyer, we look at Kevin, how he fell into blockchain. Really, that's how we get involved. If I can just terpeso kejap, even like sports and esports, which I've shared in UKM many times. I love sports, and then I got a contract for sports about 10 years ago, and I thought it was very badly drafted, and I decided to do something about it. And then many years later, suddenly I'm now doing sports. Esports was a natural evolution for sports, but the point being is never stop learning. Look at Kevin, when he became a blockchain advisor, he was at least 10 to 12 years in practice at the time. You know, so he was very senior already. He hit the figure 10 already. Yet he's going into new areas. I am now 48 years old. I started looking at this NFT at 47. All of you are less than 25. So
Yeah.
all the more reason you should embrace this area and always never stop learning. Even if you don't become an expert, at least sekurang-kurangnya know something,
Mhm.
get to understand that area, So now the latest area is of course metaverse. Before that was NFT. Before that was cryptocurrency. Before that was blockchain, and before that was esports. So these are the new things which happened the last 6 years, So never stop learning. Okay?
Right. Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Mr. Richard. So highlighting product advice, kind advice from Mr. Richard, to all our law students that join this webinar. So even after we graduated, never stop learning and dive into a new industry. Follow our trend. All right. So another question for Mr. Kevin. Now, so cryptocurrency and NFT in general have changed and the landscape of how purchase and investment occurs in digital realm. So what are certain legal aspects that are affected with NFT in Malaysia? The floor is yours, Mr. Kevin.
Right. Can I just clarify? Is it
Yeah.
the question is on the purchase and investment of the NFT?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So, this happened to me recently. My wallet was hacked, and I lost some NFTs. And
Are you serious, Kevin?
yeah.
Oh
I
my
lost some-
God.
Yeah, so cybersecurity is very important. Before I continue, let me just say cybersecurity is very important. Don't simply connect your wallet to any website, right? Even though it says minting website, it might be a malicious website. And with a blockchain like Solana, where the gas fees are so low, they can just send all your wallet contents to an address with very little cost. Whereas with Ethereum, the gas fees are so high, you want to send one token or so, it might cost you maybe 200 ringgit, something like that. Okay. So, but yeah, talking about the legal aspects, right? This is not related directly to the question of buying and selling, but coming from my personal experience, like somebody who has recently lost some NFTs, I consulted with a few friends. What can I do to get it back? And what they told me was track the NFT, and if somebody sends it to a marketplace to be listed for sale, right? We actually have NFT marketplaces. Then you can get the assistance of the marketplace to freeze that, because they need to transfer it to the marketplace. And then the marketplace would then have custody of the NFT. And then somebody else can then click buy now, and then the NFT will be transferred to them. But if you approach the marketplace and tell them, hey, there's this NFT on your marketplace, and it's actually mine, it's stolen, they can freeze that, and then they can send it back to me. All right. Then the whole question of buying and selling of stolen goods actually comes into play. Like we know that blockchain is supposed to be immutable, all right? But if you are buying something which is stolen, morally it's wrong. And if you are aware of it, then you should not do it. So that's one area which I think is an issue. Another issue maybe, right? Talking about the blockchain, as you know, the transactions are all public. It's on a public ledger, so anybody can check your transactions. And whether or not we are going to stick with GDPR and say this is an issue, all right? We need certain privacy laws, right? That has yet to be debated out, But in Europe, it was a big thing, whereby the right to be forgotten is pitted against the immutable quality of the blockchain, right? And the records are unerasable. You can't remove that. So whether or not you want that to be part of the debate, but with NFTs, it's more like how would you say? it's not so much of the records. It's more of the buying and selling. Another legal aspect which I can think of right now, okay, is if you have this IPFS, all right, let me tell you about IPFS, and it's not often mentioned, but IPFS, it is a storage layer, but content needs to be pinned, okay? Which means that if it is not pinned, the content might disappear from the IPFS network. It's what we call garbage collection. Because a lot of people are going to put content on IPFS, all right? The system actually clears out the content which is not important, which is not being accessed, all right? And that's why a marketplace like OpenSea has an MOU with maybe an IPFS service provider like Piñata, right? So they will pin all the content to make sure that, you know, when you go to the NFT listing page, it's not a blank screen, you know, that the picture is there, all right? So if your IPFS pinning is not implemented properly, all right, or for example, if a marketplace closes down or an IPFS service provider closes down, potentially a lot of images can go missing. And all that a purchaser is left with is just a token. Like I mentioned, the token points to the media, all right? And the media is where the picture resides. You hold the token in your wallet. You don't hold the media, okay? So that is potentially a danger. That's why a lot of people are moving on to something called Arweave, because Arweave is a blockchain, and then you pay for the cost of uploading media upfront. Right? You don't have to keep on pinning it. So as long as that Arweave blockchain is around, the images are safe and secure. There are also some artists. All right, this is a different issue. There are some artists. What they do is they have a nice picture. They might want to sell it on the Ethereum marketplace, and they call it a one of one. That means there's only one of it in the whole world. But then they take that same image and then they sell it on a different marketplace, maybe on the Algorand or Cardano marketplace. All right. Now, is that a misrepresentation to your buyer? Because maybe the buyer might say that I want to buy this NFT. It's a one of one. It's unique. Okay. But it turns out that this guy is misrepresenting it as unique. He's put it on a different blockchain. So this question about misrepresentation has not really come up just yet, because maybe the amount that you're investing are small, but you know, it might become quite substantial, and there's an issue with that. Maybe I think for now, these are some of the legal aspects that I can think of. I think we touched on the earlier aspects as well, but I want to touch on a slightly different aspect, and that's because I'm actually part of a community called Lip Inverse. All right, Lip Inverse. So they are building something like Decentraland, whereby you can buy virtual plots. And one of the questions which actually the founders asked me is like, hey, what if somebody, you know, uses my virtual world and they have a movie night? They say, we are going to screen Dune for everybody to come into this metaverse on Friday night, and we are going to watch Dune together. Now, they are not a cinema. They do not have a license to screen this thing. If it happens in that metaverse, who is responsible? All right. Will the company be sued? Or will the participants be sued? Nobody knows who is logging in. All right. And in some parts of the world, you cannot put surveillance in in a private space. You cannot record what they're doing unless they agree to it. So the ones which are running the virtual world may not be able to be aware. They are only alerted to it when there is a complaint. And that's opening them up to a problem. Okay. Yeah, so that's a slightly different issue, but it is going to be an important issue. Like if I were to play pirate radio in my metaverse plot, you know, and anyone who comes there can listen to radio for free. And the owner of the copyrights in those songs are going to be upset because they're not collecting royalties. Okay, I think I want to touch on another aspect, slightly different, and I don't want to overrun. You know, in this NFT space, there are two types of income that comes to the creator. And the first is where you have the primary sale. All right. That means if I were to list a new work on, let's say, OpenSea or Pentas, and I sell it to, say, Nadia buys it, I make the money. That's a primary sale. Now Nadia buys maybe 3 pieces or 5 pieces. She says, I want to keep this and this. I want to sell the other one to Richard. So Richard buys it. So in the NFT space, actually, we can have what is called a secondary sale royalty, meaning to say that the creator can get a cut of every secondary sale. If Richard sells that same piece to, let's say, Dina, there's also a royalty. So it's like a tax on every purchase. Now that's going to be, you know, continuous income for the creator. All right. And so that's going to be a taxation issue. So I think those are a few aspects. I don't know if I should touch on more topics, but I think these are certain issues that the regulators or the students or the members who are here today, they might want to consider. All right.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kevin. So, all right, one last question for you before we end the webinar. So, as a lawyer, do you think us as students and also a young generation today should explore further on NFT and how it is actually can benefit us today? Can you share a brief explanation or answer on that?
Yeah, I think that as law students, you should dive into it. You know, I told you earlier about the communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you check some of these communities, actually what they do is there's a very interesting development going on in this space. And it's that if you have an NFT from a collection, let's say, you know, a certain type of PFP, what happens is that they eventually form up a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. And then they take the royalties from the secondary sales and they channel it into what is called a community fund, a community wallet. And then they have, they do things with that. So the DAO will then continue to develop the project. They will have a stage 2, stage 3. They might have their own plot in the metaverse with the proceeds from the royalties, right? And who owns that, right? Do you own a share in the DAO? And do you then, by proxy, own a share in the metaverse? That's an interesting question, all right? Certain jurisdictions are beginning to recognize DAOs, like Wyoming, all right? But Malaysia, we haven't had that yet. So maybe if we were to try to form a DAO, it would be an unincorporated association, all right? But a DAO is very interesting because there are so many things that can take place. And how do you tax a DAO? All right, because everybody's in the crypto space. A company by the name of Shapeshift actually dissolved itself. And then, you know, before that, it had distributed all the tokens to its customers and to its users, right? And what happens is that they would then be the members of the DAO. So they would vote according to their tokens. And it then became a DAO. So it's very interesting. So this is a developing space. NFTs and DAOs are going to be intertwined, right? Royalties and tax are going to be an issue, all right? And I think as students, you might have to write a thesis in order to graduate. You could seriously explore this place.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kevin, for the suggestion. So I would like to add to our UKM law students, if you are interested more in NFT, you may contact us from the organizing team. If we did receive many requests from the other law students in UKM, maybe we could create a UKM law community for NFT, like Mr. Kevin had suggested. All right. Before we move on to the Q&A session, one last question for Mr. Richard Wee.
Mm.
So, in your opinion, will the legislation on cryptocurrency and NFT in Malaysia shall be more stricted? Because due to the rising numbers of NFT creators and buyers in Malaysia, which in due course will emerge more problems or offences.
Very good question. Very, very good question. Actually, I say it's good because it's something I want to address. You see, people tend to look towards the law to get guidance and a path. And that's what the law should be. The law should actually always be at the side of the community or the people to ensure what we are doing is legally accurate and it can be verified. The law shouldn't be impeding unless it is something or a behavior or a transaction or a some sort of activity which we discourage. For example, like drugs. The government of Malaysia totally discourage the abuse of drugs. So NFT is nowhere near there. There's nothing illicit and wrong about NFT at all. So to address your question, I think if there is any regulation which, and this is my opinion, I'm not at all saying that Bank Negara or Security Commission will do this, but my opinion is that if there is regulation, it should be here to collaborate and to assist the development on NFT instead of impeding and to be high-handed on NFT. We've already seen sometimes when the regulations are too strict that that industry doesn't develop, or there's as I used the word just now, there's too much impediment, there's roadblocks. So to answer the question, in my opinion, the legislation, instead of trying to be more strict, I think it should be collaborative, supportive, operative, and it should be here to verify. As I mentioned earlier, I think about 1 hour ago, I think we should have a legal framework for this. And I'm certain it's being designed as we're speaking. I'm sure somebody in Bank Negara or Security Commission is already doing this. And I look forward to see it. But if it's not, then I would strongly recommend that we have a framework to regulate or to assist NFT.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard and also Mr. Kevin. So that marks the end for the forum. And then what an insightful session from our both distinguished speakers. Thank you once again to our speakers, which are Mr. Kevin and also Mr. Richard. We hope participants today would gain a lot from this session in learning the basics of NFT and the regulations of NFT in Malaysia. So before we end of our session, I'm sure all of our participants today would take this chance to ask some questions to our distinguished speakers today. So with that being said, if the participants want to ask the questions to the speakers, kindly write your question in the chat box and I will read it for you. All right. We do have our first question from Mr. Akmal. So Mr. Akmal asks, does we need to pay the tax if you own NFT or does IRB will regulate for this kind of activities?
I want to address this first. Thanks, Akmal. Thanks, Nadia. Akmal, you see, owning the NFT is not a taxable conduct. You must learn to understand tax usually comes in more often than not, when there is a transaction, when something is changing hand from one to another, then there's tax, service tax, income tax, real property gains tax, stamp duty. You acquire a car, you pay import tax, cukai excise, etc., etc. But merely owning an item, very rare will they tax you. One of the items where we are taxed by merely owning it is a house or a property. So when you own a house, every year you have to pay cukai tanah, cukai this, cukai that, because there's a maintenance to the house. But so I don't see a need for you to pay tax just because you own an NFT. But when you sell, that is where they're tax. They're taxing you not because of the NFT, because of the money. As what Kevin mentioned earlier, when there's a profit, other than going issues of royalty, tapi kalau you got profit, etc., etc., that means you earn. There's an earning. That there's a possibility that earning may be taxed. Not, it doesn't matter whether you sell char kway teow, or you're a lawyer, or you are a famous football player, you earn £100,000 a week, or you're an NFT seller. So long as you're earning money, you may be taxed. So I don't see IRB regulating the ownership of NFT, but I think IRB will keep an eye on your earning. Doesn't matter what you sell, but what you're earning. That is my question to you. I hope that answered the question, and I'm sure Kevin you have something to add to it.
Yeah, my understanding is that when you cash out, then that's when you are going to be taxed, because crypto is not a legal tender, right? So if you were to say maybe have a old 1 ringgit note, all right, say from the 1960s, and you were to hold it, you buy it from the pasar malam, you buy it, you hold it, even if it goes up, in value, technically it might be a gain on paper, but it hasn't been realized as a profit. All right, so it's an unrealized gain. All right, in some countries we have capital gains tax, okay, whereby if something that you are holding as an asset goes up in value, they tax you. All right, but I think in our country we don't have that. So they wait for you to earn, you cash it out, you sell it at some auction house, or you sell it at to private transaction, and you make your money, and at that point of time it's considered as profit. All right, so there are a number of NFTs which they sell for 0.067 Ethereum, and some of them actually go up to a very high value, right? Like the CryptoPunks. You may not be aware, but one Visa, the credit card company, actually acquired a CryptoPunk for $150,000 this year, right? That's an example. Something which was sold for only $80 maybe 4 years ago, it became $150,000. At that point of time, it would be taxable. But holding on to it under our law in this country, I don't think it's taxable. Okay, so I think that's something to be considered. Yeah, I think Richard has given a very good answer. Just I wanted to add.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I think your answer is even more complete. Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Next question, Nadia.
From Mr. Akmal also, but this is quite a few answers from a few questions from him. First, he has some friends who inferior to join NFT because their artwork may be tokenized and so on. So first question, he asked how to approach them in order to join this digital art era. And second, so he stated that most of NFT artworks are quite bland, and how does the art evaluate to become more marketable? So for the third question, do we have another option beside to make NFT beside doing art?
I would propose Kevin answer this because he is directly involved in NFT, unlike me. Kevin, you want to try? You want to take a stab at it?
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Richard. I'm going to give this a try. So if your friend is doing something what we call a generative PFP, right? Like we have 6,000, 3,000, 5,000 types of monkeys, or some other thing. We also have that in the Malaysian marketplace. We have Confederacy, we have the Rich Cats Nation, we have Roach Punks. All right, and if a few of you have gotten into it, you would know about them. What I see happening, I'm not involved in selling or to market, but what I see happening is that some of them, they form up a team. So they have an artist, they have somebody to do the socializing or the marketing, the social media marketing, and a lot of it happens through Clubhouse or maybe Twitter Spaces. All right, so whereby you become known to the members of the community, and then they start to appreciate the art, and then they buy. In such cases, right, when you have a collaborative effort, then you need to resolve certain issues, like who owns the copyright to it, okay, and how are you going to split the profits. So if you put it under a collection, let's say for example under OpenSea, you can actually hard code the wallet addresses which are going to receive the secondary sales royalties. All right, or under Solana as well, you can do that. Okay, so what I have not seen happening is that they have not had proper agreements, but maybe that's because we don't talk about it. A lot of it is based on a handshake. A lot of it is decentralized teams. So you might get an artist from, let's say, Indonesia, and then you get the guy who's funding the whole thing, to pay upfront for the artist and for the smart contract development from a different country. But if you're talking about locally, you have a team that's willing to do it. You can actually formalize the relationships, right? As to the questions of the IP, as to the questions of the proceeds and the secondary sales. Okay, and yeah, if there are follow-up roadmaps, right, like they want to have their own metaverse, things like that. Do you have any ultimate decision maker or the creative vision for the whole project? Things like that. We have some of these NFT projects where people just fail to deliver, and we call it a rug pull. They might sell you the token, and then after that, they take your money. The roadmap says they're going to do this, and they're going to have a game, and they're going to have stuff like that, but they just disappear. And that's because they're all anonymous. Right. So you can't hold them accountable. So we have something called doxed, where the founders are doxed, or they've outed themselves. They say, I'm Richard Wee, I'm coming out with a NFT about esports. Yeah, then he's doxed. He's accountable. All right. Okay.
Nicely. I was taking notes, Kevin. While you're talking, I was taking notes. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, thank you. Nadia, the other day you emailed me some questions from participants who sent us questions before.
Yeah.
You want to address that?
Sure. Okay. I will address some from the Google
Yeah,
Form.
some from there. Yeah.
Okay. So, one of it, how can a question from Mr. Razman, how can a law graduate seek for a job pertaining to NFTs and blockchain?
Okay, let's start with law firm first. I want Kevin to give his input because, like I said, he's involved in the community. But as a lawyer, there are not many law firms at the moment doing blockchains, and largely less law firms doing NFT. So you may want to build your own knowledge, and when you join a law firm, there's nothing to stop you from informing your partner in charge that you want to do something with NFT and blockchain. Most lawyers, they may welcome that, though some partners, owners or law firm or bosses, they may say, no, I don't do the area, I don't understand it. But the point being is that as a lawyer, that's one potential. You can go in or join a law firm which do work on this. The other one, of course, is there are many companies out there who are doing blockchains or businesses related to blockchains, and they always require some legal advice. So you may want to join a company as an in-house lawyer, or maybe set up your own law firm. Even though you're young, there's nothing to stop you from establishing your own law firm after you get called to the bar and offer advice to this group of people. Of course, please make sure you know your law before you give advice. Don't simply sell goreng char kway teow if you don't even know what is a kway teow. So that's something you need to understand. But I must say that there are more areas in blockchain for you to consider, but there's still for now limited areas for you to consider for NFT. Not that NFT is limited. I'm talking about regulation and law for NFT. There are not many openings yet. Even though it is evident the NFT community, they do need legal support and there are insufficient lawyers in that area to help the NFT people. So that's my opinion to you. Join a law firm, bring the topic to yourself, ask your partners, I want to do it, or better still, join a law firm which is doing it. Secondly, join a company, most of them are blockchain, become a legal manager there or become an advisor, yada yada. Or thirdly, set up your own law firm and advise people. That's my advice from the angle of a law grad. I saw the question here. Kevin?
Yeah, I echo most of his thoughts. In fact, I agree with Richard. Most of what he said is correct. As a law graduate, you can approach this thing from the legal aspect. All right, but and all that Richard said, you can either work in a law firm covering this whole portfolio of blockchain. You can also go in-house, right, and become a chief legal officer or a legal department. But if you want to, and this is another aspect of it, you can go into the compliance side of it. You can go into the KYC, anti-money laundering side of it, and you can be qualified. You can take up a qualification like chemical or something else, and then you assist them in their compliance side. But that is actually a little bit more public, because you have to look at all the transactions that's going through. They have something called risk-based approach, RBA, in which you then help to monitor things like suspicions, transaction reporting, things like that. And that's a whole different side of it. As a law graduate, you can go down that path, or you can take this path as the regulatory framework, that kind of thing, and how you help to build it out. All right, and law firms do provide an important service. Like, for example, in Singapore, if you wanted to list a token, all right, in an exchange, and they're going to ask you to come up with a legal opinion, and then they will read through that whole opinion and they'll say, okay, your token looks legit, so we're going to list it on our exchange. That kind of thing is something which you can offer as a lawyer. All right. Other aspects pertaining to crypto are like the custody of it. All right. So we have a new license called the Digital Asset Custodian, a DAC, and it's almost like a trustee, in which they hold on to the digital asset, all right, on behalf of a third party or beneficiary. That, I think, is also another area worth looking into. All right, so trustee for digital assets. I'm actually quite interested in that, but who knows? So yeah, there are many aspects that you can look at. And eventually, if you get enough experience in the marketplace, you got your fingers dirty, you understand how it works, maybe you can even go and work with government, because government needs talent in order to upgrade the law, because the law has to keep track of what is out there. All right, and it should not be drafted by people who have no experience.
No clue. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, they have certain kinds of expectations which are not realistic. Okay, that's what I want to say.
Thanks, Kevin. Kevin, can I add on to that, Nadia?
Sure.
I like what Kevin said about the KYC. Actually, there is another area which I'm sure Kevin heard about it. It's called RegTech. RegTech is a regulation technology. So you heard FinTech, which is a financial technology. Now there is a growing technology to help regulators. The regulators, as you know, they can't manually check everything. And there's a technology to assist the regulators to check. And while many people in RegTech are technological people, they require lawyers. And I foresee RegTech and NFT will become good friends one day because it kind of need each other, you know. And the concept of KYC and eKYC will also come in handy when it deals with NFT, because KYC is about identification, knowing your customer. So if you tweak that and you do KY NFT, knowing your NFT, it can be the concept can be similar. So something Kevin just triggered my thinking. So, oh yeah, I forgot about RegTech. It can be also something you can go in as a lawyer. Yeah, the opportunity is there, ladies and gentlemen. And don't look at only Malaysia. Look at the world. This is a world issue, global issue. Everywhere in the world got NFT. Why only work here? Of course, I would prefer you to work here lah. As a Malaysian, I'm proud of our country. Stay here, develop our country, build our country. But you know, if you can go out and learn and come back, become better, why not?
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard, for and also Mr. Kevin for a very insightful answer. So one question that we received in the Google form, in terms of the copyright that we've discussed earlier, so does the seller must delete their NFT in his possession? It has been sold.
This one, again, Kevin will refine my answer. I'll give a simple one. I mentioned this very much at the beginning. So when, let's say this is an NFT, and I agree to sell to Kevin, and I told him, bro, you take everything lah, my copyright. He just mentioned that he also gave the same example. I said, so he take lah. So when he takes the copyright, the example Kevin gave about the musician, the saxophonist, same thing. So then it depends on when I sell what I sold to Kevin, the NFT. But if I say very clear, I'm selling you a copy, then I'm keeping the original. Then you will be holding a copy. This is your copy. You know, so that's how I look at it. Maybe Kevin, you can. I hope I'm not wrong. Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong and refine my answer.
Thanks, Richard. So an NFT, as we mentioned earlier, it's actually a token, and the token is transferred, you know, from a wallet to another wallet. So when it is sold, the NFT definitely goes to the buyer's wallet. And yeah, the question of IP, it's different from the ownership of the token itself. So like Richard said, you know, the example, another similar example, you go to the bookshop, you buy a novel, Harry Potter, all right? You own that copy of Harry Potter, okay? But you do not own the right to make, say, maybe photocopies of that book and distribute to your friends for Christmas. You can't do that. That's because what you have is the right to enjoy that copy of your book, okay? So the same thing goes for NFT. The artist might have a nice painting, say maybe a picture of me, for example, right? Then that artist digitizes that NFT, and that artist then sells the NFT. Now that NFT is bought by somebody, but the original painting still subsists. It still exists, you know, and that artist still retains the copyright on it. Does he have to destroy the original painting? The answer is no. Now, very interestingly, there's a guy called Damien Hirsch, all right? And this is an example that I like to bring up because maybe he did it as a gimmick. So he created this piece of artwork. It's a white background. It's got all these colored dots, green, pink, blue, and all the different colors. He cut it up into 10,000 different pieces. And each piece, he digitized it. And in that case, he said, you can buy the digital NFT, and after 1 year, you can send the NFT back to me, and I'll send you the physical artwork. Or you can keep the NFT, and I'll destroy the physical artwork. So you can own either one, but you cannot own both. Now that is a gimmick. That is something kind of different. And if somebody wanted to do that, maybe, that could increase the value of the NFT, right? Because you could have the NFT from a famous artist, or you could have the physical work from a famous artist. Okay. And this question about physical and digital, some of them call it phygital. Okay. Phygital. It's a play. I suppose it's a way of trying to market the NFT. All right. But really speaking, like what Richard said, the creator retains the copyright unless it is sold together. And there is no need to destroy the original unless it is a promise. All right. Like what Damien Hirsch did for that currency NFT that he has. Okay.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kevin and Mr. Richard. I want to ask, can you entertain one last question from our participants? So
Yeah,
it is-
sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. This question is quite long from Miss Amira. So
Oh, this question I saw. Yes.
Yeah,
This one I
let's-
think Kevin will have to answer this, but yeah.
Yeah, it's quite long. Do you want me to read?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll read it first. Yeah. So Amira, you're inquiring about you're having an art and you offered to a buyer an option to acquire the original artwork and physically, but the buyer now is more keen to keep the NFT. You inquired whether this is immoral, and you also inquired whether you still be able to sell the original. Again, as you may have heard, Kevin and I mentioned a couple of times, at a point when you sold this, whether it's real art or NFT art, did you agree to sell the copyright together? So that will be the key. What was the terms of your sale? Of course, the issue of immorality, I won't comment for that. But that will be my answer. When you sold, apabila kamu jual tu, adakah kamu setuju untuk memberikan hak intelek tu kepada pembeli? Did you agree to sell the intellectual rights to the buyer? That would be the key. Is that, Kevin? Would you say that?
I look at the question, maybe it's not really about intellectual property, Richard, but I think it's about the physical and digital.
Yeah, she asked the two, right? Yeah. I stand corrected, Kevin. You go ahead.
So I think in this case, the buyer may not be asking for the IP in the work, but the buyer might be asking, say, they only want the digital and maybe to destroy the original physical.
Okay. Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so in that case, actually, it really goes back to the terms of sale. It goes back to your contract of sale. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is covered by your Contracts Act. All right, what was promised? Was there a legitimate expectation as part of the sale that the original would be destroyed? If not, then that's really the right of the artist whether they want to add that in. Otherwise, it becomes a case of misrepresentation. All right, a misconception by the purchaser. Maybe the purchaser bought it and she thought, if I buy this, the original piece actually also belongs to me. No, that's not true. All right, there might be a physical piece and there might be a digital piece. Right, so the buyer might be under the misconception that he has the right to say, destroy that, or keep that, or send it to my mother-in-law because she likes art. That might be a misconception because it might not be part of the sale. Okay. Now, if it was part of the sale, you need to say that I'm going to sell it as a bundle, both the physical and digital. Then that buyer has the right. So looking back at the question, let me see the question. Sorry, because I'm on the mobile phone.
It says, I read for you, Kevin. It says, hi speakers, let's say I'm selling my painting as an NFT on the marketplace. And though I first offered the first buyer an option to obtain the original artwork to be physically delivered to the first buyer, bracket as a bundle purchase, the buyer decided to just keep the NFT and not to own the original artwork. Would the exclusive right still be afforded to me to still be able to sell the same original artwork in real life? And would this be considered immoral? So it's basically the Amira is inquiring that whether Amira can sell the original artwork again.
I think she can.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah.
In fact, if she wanted to do prints of that artwork, and this is another way of how people sell art, they have edition prints. They might have one painting, but then they take that same painting and they print 100 copies of it, and they number
Yeah. Yeah.
print number 1 autograph, print number 2 autograph. They might do that because they retain the copyright. All right. So Leonardo da Vinci, if he was alive today, he could sell the Mona Lisa to the Louvre, but he could have prints, maybe 100 copies of it, and he could sell to everybody. Okay, because he retains the copyright.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kevin and Mr. Richard, for the Q&A session and also for the whole webinar. So, dear participants, since the times has elapsed for the Q&A session and also from the remaining questions in the chat box, I believe that those had been covered during the whole session of the webinar today. So if you want to see all the recorded session, you may email or contact any of our organizing committee to send the recorded version of this webinar. So it marks the end the programs. So I thank our speaker for the wonderful presentation of the whole webinar today and for helping our participants with their doubts. All right. So I'm sure all of our participants who had joined us today had gained so much new insights on NFT and also regulations in Malaysia. And I also hopes that it helps more youth in exploring and delving into NFT today. So before we end the whole session today, so let's capture this moment with a photo session. So I hope all of our participants could open your own camera for the photo session.
Before that, Nadia, I think Kevin and I would just want to say a few words. On my part, on behalf of our firm, thank you for the kind invitation. Much obliged for having myself here. I want to thank my colleague, Kimberly, who's here. Kimberly had helped me prepare for this topic. And being a dinosaur, it needed someone with a more a digitally friendly lawyer than me to understand some of the topics. But as I said, we are still learning this area. And but it's always nice to share some thoughts, and I really hope what I shared would assist the people. I know I'm learning from Kevin because he's so much more well-versed than myself. But the thing is with this topic is that keep an eye and keep your tab on the development. And and for those who are law students here, every time you see something develop on NFT, put on your lawyer's cap, your LLB cap, and think, how would a lawyer deal with this problem? That's how I deal with it when I try to develop this area. But it's always nice to as I mentioned many times, to join you all in the university. And thank you for having RWC here. Kevin?
Yes, we would like to also thank Pentas also for helping us in preparing for the webinar today. All right, participants, if you are ready, you may open your camera for the photo session, and if you want, we can email the moment that we have captured for you.
Come on, guys. Come on, girls.
Yeah.
Switch on your camera, man. Yeah. I see Akmal. Hi, Amira. Hi, Sarah. Okay. I see Fadlin, but she's upside down. Hi, Wan Anis. Okay, no, what is it? Is Kalan. Okay, cool.
Okay, I don't think there is more. Okay, committee, one of you may take the picture, okay? So in the count of 3, 2, 1, smile. All right, one more time. So this is more fun posture. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay, thank you very much. So last but not least, on behalf of the organizing team, we would like to thank all the participants and also especially our speakers who had speak for the whole 2 hour session today and spend your time and morning today. So I believe that this webinar will be one of your contribution in building your extravagant journey ahead. So participants, have a nice weekend ahead, everyone, and stay safe until the next time. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
Take care,
you,
Kevin.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Nadia. Bye, team. UKM.
Thank you
Take care.
very
Study hard. Yep.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard, Mr.
Thanks, everyone.
Kevin.
Mr. Kevin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kevin.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good session. Thanks.
Yeah.